Just for the record, today is November 27th, and I am here with Linda Boerson and her granddaughter, Victoria Boerson, and I'm the narrator, Taylor Van Pelt. So, my first question is, can you give me, how you grew up? You already told me that you grew up on a farm, but how many brothers and sisters you had, where you grew up, stuff like that.
Okay. I grew up on a farm and around Loop City, Nebraska. I have four other sisters. There's 5 of us all together. And went to school at Loop City High School.
Do you have any parents or grandparents that were in the military?
No, never did.
So what was the time like, how you met your husband, him going into the war? What was that timeline like?
Well, I met him one night. I was working at a restaurant in Loop City, and he came in with a friend, and I met him. And then we finally got to date and go together, and then we got engaged. And then my husband got his draft papers. And so we were going to get married in June, so he got his draft papers to leave April 27th. So we got married April 3rd, earlier, before he left for the service, because we wanted to be married. And basically, he got drafted to Vietnam.
And so how old were you at that time?
Oh, goodness. 19? Was I 19, dear? Can't remember. Oh, you're going to ask me a question, fine. Yeah, 19.
Around 19.
We got married when I was 19.
So was there any question of whether or not he was going to draft? Like, were you going to fight it and say that he was going to school or anything like that?
When he got drafted, at that time, there was I don't know what to call it, not a petition, but a thing out that if you had one sole surviving son, which he was of a family, and only had 2 sisters, they could not take your only son, because that meant they could carry the name on. But at that time, he got drafted. His parents went down to fight it to see if he wouldn't have to go, and most generally that was the rule. If you only had one son that would carry the name on, they didn't have to go to war. It didn't matter. They went to war. They took him anyway, so they couldn't get him out of the service. So he went.
So do you think you would have gotten married that early if he wasn't drafted?
Well, we were going to get married in June 8th, I think. And we were going to have a double wedding with my older sister, because they were getting married June 8th. No, we wouldn't have got married, but we were going to miss June 8th, and we wanted to be married when he left. We had went together for 3 years. And so we decided that we wanted to be married, and we wanted to be married in case he didn't come back. Mm-hmm. Now, that sounds weird, but that's how we felt at age 19.
So, what were your opinions of the Vietnam War prior to him being drafted? Did you, think much of it? Did you know much about it?
No, I didn't really think a whole lot about war at that age. I just didn't really pay a lot of attention. I knew there was a war going on. I knew there was a Vietnam War going on, and I knew the draft was kind of in the back of our mind, that maybe they were going to start drafting boys that were, what was he, 18, 19? And we knew that could happen, but we just didn't think it would happen because he was the only son. But when he got his draft papers, we were like, it came in the mail. He opened it up, and it said, "Greetings from the government," or whatever. I can't even remember what it said. He probably remember it. And I was like, what? So it meant he was going to war.
I can't even imagine what that would be like.
It was it was like a, oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
what were your initial reactions? Was it early in the war when that started, or had you heard of people who?
Well, I think the war had been going on for a while because he went in as some troops were coming home. They had to replace them. And what was my reaction to the war?
Or him being drafted? Were you scared?
Very, very, very scared.
Were you scared for his safety?
Yes, for him dying over in the war, because a lot of people had been killed in the Vietnam War. I think the Vietnam War was the highest casualties of any
There
war.
was a lot.
And so when he left, my thought was, fear, if I never see you again. I mean, yeah, floods. And I think he even felt that. Because he had said to me, I want to be married if something happens to me. And I was like,
You're like, I don't
so
think
at 19, I was like, oh, all these flooding thoughts that go through your head.
So when did you ever have the fear of him, this is going to sound horrible, but like being, like cheating on you or something? Because he is in another country and,
No, that never crossed my mind because we were so in love then. I think our bond was, and I didn't know. I guess I didn't think of that aspect of it. I thought of the aspect of shooting, getting shot at, taking a hostage. I mean, those things. That other part never ever crossed my mind.
So did you write to him?
Every day. Every day. And you can ask him. Right, Max? Every night I sent a letter, and I would run up to the post office and send it. He got a letter every day he was in Vietnam. They didn't come every day because sometimes he wouldn't hear from me, and then he'd get 2 or 3 letters. So every day I wrote him a letter, told him what I did that day, and yeah, he had them when he came home. We had to burn them after a while because we were first married, So some of them were very intimate, and some of them were very, I love you, He told me that's what kept him going. A letter every day.
So did you feel like your husband was safe over there, or?
No. Never felt no safety from the day he left. I felt like there was a threat to his, not coming back. Like getting shot or killed.
What was his role over there? Do you know?
Foot soldier, infantry,
So he was kind of on the front line.
ground pounders they call them. They carried a gun and went into the jungle and lived in the jungle. He said you couldn't see during the day you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. It was so dark in the jungle. It was very, what do you want to call it, congestion. When you go into the jungle, it was like night, even during the day.
How long was he over there?
A year.
So, some people got, like, leave to go on, like, vacation or something.
Yeah, he did get a leave to go to, where was that, dear?
What?
Where was we going to meet? Hawaii?
Why?
He got they call him an R&R. And he got a leave, and I was going to meet him. And I was so excited, but I was scared at the same time because I never flew by myself and going that far. But I was going to get a ticket, meet him over there, and I could have. But then he got bumped by a lieutenant or somebody higher rank that wanted to go, and they could bump the lower privates. And so he got bumped, and it was all canceled. And then I was disappointed.
So where did you stay while he was in the war?
I lived in an apartment with Max's sister, Diane.
And so what was that like for you? Were you lonely? Were you?
Well, I worked a little bit. I kind of worked a few jobs off and on. Go home to my parents a lot. Spent the weekends. Can't really... Yeah, I was lonely, but I just knew a whole year. So when I went into it, I just had to set my mind It's kind of a set mind, is what I call it. And yeah, I was lonely for him, but I think the letters that I wrote kept us connected. The letters he wrote, he wrote a letter every night too, and I would get one, like, every day or a few every day, and I think that kept us real connected.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of things did you talk about? Did he tell you what he was doing?
No, he didn't tell me a whole lot about the war. Just basically, I miss you, care about you. I can't wait to get home. Things that kept him looking forward to coming home. And I would write the same thing. So gave us, like, that time wasn't so long. It was like, can't wait for you to get home, and we're going to have this and do this. And our plans were always for coming home. Didn't think of it that way, but that's exactly the way it was. Yeah.
So I'm sure, did you take any heat for your husband going to the war while you were here? Not
Never
at all?
did. Mm-mm. Nobody ever bothered me about it. The heat really didn't when they got drafted. It's when they came home. It wasn't so much when the guys, somebody knew he was going to Vietnam. They never said anything. It's when they went and came back, then I guess I didn't feel that either. But I guess he did some.
As the war went on, and as you probably became more informed about the war, did your opinion change of the war? Like, did you think it was a just war?
I never really looked at that. I was just more afraid of him coming back. I guess I didn't really look at the war, what it was doing, because if I got into it too much, it would scare me. Like, one night I was watching the news, and I knew he was in the Mekong, around the Mekong Delta, and there was fighting, and I would try to stay away from the news, because that would make me even more feared. And then if I'd hear something in a Mekong Delta, or if they were doing this, I went, that's where he's at. And so basically, be honest, I didn't watch a lot of the news. It made it easier on me.
Did you have, like, a support group here that you, like,
My parents,
connected?
I'd go home and stay with them. I didn't really have a lot of friends. His parents, I did a lot of hanging out with his parents. My parents, my sisters and stuff. It was my family that pretty much hung with me. I didn't have a lot of friends I ran around with because they weren't married, and I kind of tried to work, and it was just kind of a day-to-day thing.
Did you have any friends, or did you hear anything from anybody else about them experiencing the same thing as you did?
Well, I guess I do take that back. I did have a friend, Joan Mack. Her husband went over, and her and I hung a little bit together. She kind of had her family. I kind of clung back to family and my parents and my sisters, and Max's family was real supportive. And her husband was there at the same time, but she was married, had a baby. So that her baby kept her busy. And I always wanted one, but then I got thinking, that was hard. She had it without him there, and she would go, "Oh, Linda, it was so hard. You don't," and at 19, your emotions are different than when you're 70 now. But I thought, I just wanted a baby from him, because then I would have had something if he didn't come back. Those are the things as you mature. Well, it wasn't the best thing, because she really had a hard time with her baby and her husband not seeing him grow. So she had to deal with that aspect of it. I didn't. I just dealt with myself. And that probably would have made it a little bit easier. Especially for me, but for the one over there, it would have been hard. It would have been harder for him not to see, well, which would probably have been Brian. He wouldn't have seen that first year of him. See, thinking back on it is so much different than going through it. Yeah.
So you said you relied on your parents a lot to keep you through the war. What kind of advice were they giving you? Were they?
They really didn't, because I was married. I just would go out and hang out. I mean, they really, I don't know. Come to think of it, they didn't really say too much. They just asked how I was doing, and I just kind of lived my own little life there for a year.
How did that?
Actually, it kind of went fast. It's kind of like a blink now, but at the time it didn't seem like it. I thought this is going to be for an eternity when he left. I was like, I was lost, but then I'm a kind of a strong person, and I went out and I tried to find a job. That one didn't work. I quit that one, then I went to another one. I kind of just was unsettled for quite a while, but I got through it.
So how long were you dating before you got the draft notice and you got
3
married?
years.
Oh, so it's a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Actually, I met him in my sophomore year.
3 years.
And we started going together before we got married 3 years. I was a sophomore, then I went into my senior year. But then he lived in Grand Island, I lived in Loop City, so it was like a weekend. He'd come up and we'd go out and eat. He'd drive clear back to Grand Island and we'd eat supper. Because Loop City had nothing.
Yeah.
And then we'd hang out at his folks' house, watch TV with them. Isn't that weird?
What characteristics of your marriage do you think helped you get through something like this? Was it just the love? Was it?
Yeah. He's sitting there. It's hard to say. I was totally in love with him. Yeah, I was. I think it was our love that just kept us together. Because we really didn't have enough married life. I mean, April 3rd, and then he left April 27th. It was like, we didn't have enough, to really build on anything else, but what we got married on was that we loved each other. So I think that's basically what took us back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever worry about how the soldiers were treated over there?
No.
Once you got back, do you still believe that the soldiers got decent care?
That didn't affect me like it probably did them. Mm-hmm. Like when they went on the trip to Washington and those guys came back, how many years has that been? 50 years or so? I did not realize the impact it had on a lot of those guys to go to Washington and came back and everybody was applauding them. Now, I asked my husband, I said, did you actually feel like some of them did, that came back and they were on the news? He said he never really felt it either. I think we lived in a little world, him and I. He was there, evidently doing his job, but my world was just him and I. I think I just encircled that and tried to shut everything else around it. Because I even asked him, did that bother you that bad when you come back? He goes, not really. Some of the people it really did, but I don't know. I think I don't know what it was.
That year was just kind of like...
Yeah, it's just him and I, and we just wrote back and forth, and it was a tunnel vision, and I think that's how I am, and he was, but he said, well, I didn't really feel that bad. But then maybe he didn't, he come home to a very loving family. Everybody was just ecstatic. We were so glad to have him home. Christmas was just like over the top. There he was in his uniform, and everybody just... It was almost. He was an only boy. His sisters were gaga over him. His parents were gaga over him. I was. Everybody made over him. So really, that's how it went. And I don't know. I think we just kind of lived in this I lived in a bubble myself. But I think it was now that I think about it, it could have been a protection mode that I went into. That I just... This is the way it has to be. I'm young, I'm going to have to figure this out. And he's going to be gone no matter whether I like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Describe to me what it was like when he was, the last few weeks.
Oh, I can tell you what the last day was when we took him down and left him off. We were bawling. He started crying. I started crying. And it was very hard. And we took him down to Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where he had to be. And I was really upset. I probably cried all the way home. Just had to leave him. And we were never apart. We were because we weren't married. But that August 3rd to the 27th, 3 weeks we were together every day. Mm-hmm. So that was really hard. And when I seen him cry, then it was horrible.
When you see a guy cry, it's like...
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I know it's over. You know, it's amazing what your mind can do. But,
Now, what about the few weeks leading up to him coming back? Did you do your
really
hair?
happy.
Or...
Let's see what I do. That's been 50 some years ago. Oh gosh. I don't know. I just remember kind of pacing myself because if I got in too big of a hurry from the beginning, it was a long year. You think about a year. I was like a year. Oh, right now it almost blows me out of the water. But I think yeah, it was just getting more intense and so exciting. And he was supposed to come in on a plane somehow, and I don't know. I was just kind of getting ready, and we lived in a basement apartment, and I heard a car door, and I looked out, and it was a cab, and out walked a guy in a uniform, and I had my hair in rollers. I was just half dressed, getting dressed. It was him. I was, oh my God. It was like seeing Prince Charming again. I swear. I remember looking out the window and I was like, oh my gosh, he's here. I started running around the room. It was weird. I know, it sounds weird, don't it? But that was 19. And I mean, I just threw clothes on and then knock on the door. It was like a knife went through me.
Not ready yet.
Yeah, don't come in yet.
Come in, but don't come in.
Yes, yeah. Very excited. But see, he kind of came early. I don't know, was you going to surprise me or did you just come in early? I can't either. I thought I was supposed, I don't know. But when I seen the cabin, I seen him carrying a duffel bag. I was like, because I had a little window, I could see out to the corner. I was like, oh my God. My heart, I mean, it was even better than meeting him for the first time.
So then what did you do after that? Did you get together with all your family or just
Well,
hang
it
out
was
just you
around
two?
Christmas time. I think I can't remember. Yeah, I think, we had an apartment, and that's as far as I'll go there. And then after a while, we went over to his parents that evening because they were really ready to see him. That was their baby boy. Mm-hmm. And I heard that every day. I talked to my son. And I was at 19, I could have been something else, but I was very supportive. I was very glad that they thought that much of him, Because, boy, that was his mom and dad both had a hard time with that, I remember. And his mom wrote him every day, and I thought, what are you writing him for every day? He's my husband. But then, you have to mature. And then when I think about it, I thought, oh. But she said, I'd get a letter from him. I go, until you grow up, you just kind of, yeah. I thought, so what? But, you have to realize 19, and now I'm 70, almost 69. Now my whole thoughts are different. I would be very glad that his parents or his sisters say, I got a letter from my brother today. And I go, I did too. Because we never got to have what a lot of people have, that whole honeymoon time, So when he came back, we did take a trip to Denver on a train and went to see my sister. That was kind of like our belated honeymoon. Mm-hmm. We went out there, as a married couple. Nobody could tell us what to do and get on a plane or a train and go out to Colorado. And then he did have some time left. Oh, we had to go back out to North Carolina also. And everybody said to me, are you going with him? And I went, yes. Well, he's only going for 2 months. We didn't care. We drove all the way out there together, and we drove all the way back. Nobody was keeping us apart again. So anyway, yeah.
So the first holiday, I assume, was
Christmas.
apart.
I think it was Christmas.
But the first Christmas that you were apart, was he?
I think so, and I don't remember too much about it.
And then, so you said before that, it was a really big deal. Can you describe that Christmas to me?
Well, it just seemed like he was the center of attention. He was sitting there, and everybody was, it's just like we all came. I mean, it really wasn't Christmas. It was him being home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the tree was up and everybody was there, but it was all about just seeing him there, with everybody around. Yeah, it was. I don't even remember Christmas. We took pictures, and I think we have a few. I don't know where they're at, but he was in his uniform, and I just love guys in uniform, though. To this day, they look hot. I mean, not to me, but just like today at the funeral, Mike was a Navy guy, and he passed away. When they come in their uniforms, the Navy guys, there is just something about a uniform that is so. That's the only time I cried. I mean, I felt bad for Mike being gone, but when they did the flag and when they did the taps, that's when the tear would come out of my eye. Yeah. So evidently I still have a lot of feelings. That could be stuffed in there forever, 'Cause I don't know why I was crying, because they were doing the flag and there was tears rolling out of my eyes, and I was like, it was more military again. And they were honoring him, yeah.
So, what advice would you give to somebody my age, 19, whose husband is going into the military? Like what, like post-war, how did you take care of your husband? Just like nothing happened? Did you talk about the war?
No, didn't talk about the war. I let him, and he didn't talk about it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he came back, I don't know, I didn't really want to talk about it. It kind of was a part of our life that was very hard, very emotional, and very hard to go through. So I think when he come back, we just shoved it on the back burner and went on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a good thing. I always thought, somebody told me this, and maybe I knew it before. Don't talk about it, but if he's ready, talk. But he never talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why he has post-trauma stress disorder. Don't you, dear? He does have some, because he's been diagnosed with it. Don't look at me that way. I don't hear. Yeah, because he has been, through the government and stuff. He has PSTD. But then they always say, you don't bring it up, you let them. If they're ready to talk, they'll talk. If you don't, then they don't talk. I don't remember us ever really talking about it. We just went on with life.
How do you think that your marriage was impacted? Like, do you think it made you guys stronger?
Stronger at first, but I think there became a lot of problems later on in life.
Because of the war?
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
I think connecting a little bit more, like opening up, opening up with your feelings, and me not understanding probably a lot of the feelings he was feeling. Personally, we both probably should have had some kind of counseling when they came back together as a couple. Because my whole situation was different than his whole situation. And if two people don't talk about it, what do you think's going to happen? They bottle it. And I bottle it. I mean, I didn't have much to bottle because I was on the better side of it. But I think it has impacted some ways that maybe I'll never know. Mm-hmm. How people feel about life. That's all I can say.
Yeah. What lessons did you learn that you would want your granddaughters to learn from what you went through? Either about picking the right guy or...
Well, I don't know what I would say about that. I can't say I didn't know him. 3 years is a long time. I think at 19 I probably wasn't mature enough to know exactly, how do I want to say that? exactly the whole impact of everything I was going through. You know what I mean? You plan a marriage, then this whole thing comes in and disrupts your whole life, and then you decide to get married, then you're alone, and I have to say myself, I think I handled it pretty well. But that's just me, because I'm a pretty strong person.
Do you think you were raised as a strong person, or do you think the war made you that strong person?
No, I wasn't raised a strong person. I think that made me a little bit controlling, probably, which isn't a good thing for a woman sometimes. But I took control, I think, at 19 of my life, my marriage, my feelings, and I have been controlling for 50 years. No, I would say probably I never was a controlling person when I was younger. I was kind of a follower. I was a middle child. I had 2 older sisters and 2 younger. I mean, I think I was just floating along with life, and really. And then when this came along, it kind of made me a little bit, maybe a little bit more controlling, a little bit hard about, not hard, but made me a little bit, nobody's going to hurt me again, or nobody's going to, I don't know. You know, that's kind of hard for me to figure out. Because I believe when you go through circumstances, things happen to you. Sometimes you realize it, and sometimes you don't. You know? I might have just, I don't know.
Have your views about what you went through and stuff changed over the years, or do you think no?
No, pretty much the same. So, my views of going to war, and if it wasn't a war everybody said we shouldn't have been into, we had no choice. I mean, when you're drafted and the government says you're going, you don't go, you're going somewhere else. So, you know, it's kind of like a choice. You know, people go, well, that was a war, it shouldn't have been done. We would have been glad to say, okay, we're not going and this is it. But you have no choice when you get drafted. We knew that at that age, 18 years old. If they ever have a draft again and people get their draft papers, you don't say, well, I'm not going. I mean, that's just our government. So, no, my views are, you do what you got to do, and I think he knew he had to do it. There was no way out. That's just how it had to be.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the United States as a whole learned their lesson from the Vietnam War?
I hope so. I hope so. They did a lot of things. I mean, just hearsay where they took hills and let them take it back and fought for nothing. And I'm hoping they learned. 'Cause that's the lives that were lost. What a lesson. I mean, there's people we know to this day that died and they never had a life. They didn't get to live like we do. I think it's made me a little bit more appreciative of what I've had. You know, my husband came back. We had a family, had a life. Sometimes when you go look at the wall, you think some of them didn't. Kind of gives you a little bit different perspective on be thankful for and why you're here. You know, why you came back, why they didn't. You're just lucky you weren't in the line of fire, I guess, because he was shot at many times, you know. And I think that has to have an impact on someone. Just like today when they did those, you know, at the funerals, they do the gun salute. I never seen him jump so high in my life. I thought, why did you jump? I should be scared of the gun. And he doesn't like 4th of July shooting either. And
Actually, I have heard that. There's a lot of veterans that
I've
don't like
always heard that
fireworks.
from him because, gosh, I don't like that. It reminds me of Vietnam, hearing all these, even in the house, hearing all these, because it was constant popping, shooting, you know, not around him, but off in the distance. He'd always say that, and he still says it to this day. I just don't like all that noise. I mean, he don't go weird, but he just doesn't like it. And then I thought, what? But then as I started thinking about it, when I hear him out there, that's what it sounds like. A whole bunch of people shooting off guns. Bop, 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 you know. Yeah, it's probably affected us in some ways. And like I said, maybe I'll never understand it. Maybe I will. I've tried to through a lot of things that people say, you know. It's called post-trauma stress.
So, as a wife, how do you
I think I've
handle
had
that?
some post-trauma stress. Really.
Mm-hmm.
I think the wives, see, well, nobody takes care of us. Like when we went to a reunion, there's not too many vets that their marriages are together. And I didn't know that. So I had a guy come up to me and we told him we were married like, I think it was like 48 years or something. He shook my hand and I thought, oh, how nice. Because do you realize what I went through when he was over there worrying about him every day of my life? He came up to me and says, ma'am, I want to shake your hand. He said, for you guys being married 48 years, that's real rare with guys that have been in the service. And at first I looked at him, I thought, you kidding? And then I got thinking about it. Yeah, there can be some insecure problems and insecurities and, like I said, post-trauma stress. I wanted to say, yeah, I need a medal. Really. I felt like I needed a medal right here for standing by and worrying the whole time they were gone. I mean, not, I wasn't over there. I don't mean it that way. But supporting him and, like he told me one time, I don't know if I could have made it if you wouldn't have wrote to me every day. I was his support. But nobody, well, my family was here. But I really didn't have too much support, like, you're going to make it, you're going to be okay. I just did that to myself. I just kind of talked myself into it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think the military wives now, what I understand, they have military support, don't they? They kind of get in their military women's groups, and they kind of support each other. And I think back then when we had it, we just didn't have it a lot. I think that's a good thing. Because the parent and the women that are left here with kids and the worry and trying to run a home, and I didn't have kids, but I think of the ones that have kids and trying to tell the kids, Daddy's going to be okay, you know, he's coming home. They don't know. And then they have to tell your child he's not, or something happens. And then I'm sure they have their support. I think that's gotten better. I've been out of it too long. But I think that support for the military wives and families are very important now. Because I think they're doing it more. Sometimes you hear at Christmas time, give to the military kids that their dad's gone, or give to the military families. Hallelujah, they need it too. You know, they're like, their husbands are over there fighting and they don't know. So I think that's a good thing, and I think it's better now. I think we've grown from Vietnam to here, about what they know, studies.
Mm-hmm. So the time, like, that the Vietnam happened, there's a lot of other things going on. There's a lot of racial issues and things like that. But there's also a lot of, like, women's rights issues. Do you feel like you were given more rights because you had to? Or do you think it was the time period, like getting a job and everything like that? Like, would you have got a job and everything if you wasn't
Probably
serving?
not. No. I think it kind of forced us to probably go ahead and work, do, you know, that, you'd have to do something to keep yourself busy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd have been crazy. I don't know. I think I worked in a motel, which was probably not my thing. I worked at Holiday Inn, but I'm a busy person, and just to clean the rooms and keep things going, getting off work, going to work, going home at night, you know, that probably helped a lot. I don't think I really worked at the beginning. I probably, I don't know, didn't have time to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The rights of women, I don't know. The government did support us. I mean, you know, we didn't get married for that reason, but once we got married, we found out I got an allotment. And that check came to me every month. It was like $90-some at that time. But to then, but that wasn't the reason I got married, because I didn't know until after we was married. He sent me a letter that said, you need to sign this, you can get an allotment. I go, what's an allotment? Well, that meant they were allotting the wives to have money to live on. So, but we didn't do that for that reason, because we didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some good things probably come out of it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. After the war, did you, like you said, you kind of saw the PTSD and things like that. Were there any like physical ailments that you saw from Agent
Not till
Orange
now.
or anything like that?
Not till now. I think it's more older. Nothing really came up right away, but I think I see people I know that's been in the service are having Agent Orange on their skin, but that has shown up like 40 some years later. So you don't know. Nothing at the beginning.
But now you are starting to see.
Well, I think there's
A little
some
bit.
things that's happened that could be a little bit of from the service. I don't know. He sprayed every day. He's had some things taken off his back that were precancerous, and they keep watching, this. And it could be from Agent Orange. I don't know. That Agent Orange takes a long. I mean, I guess it's in you, and I don't know. But we know several people that have it our age now.
Do you still stay in contact, like with Judy, the woman that you were talking about? Does your husband still stay in contact with those people?
Now who?
Joan.
Oh, Joan. No, they got a divorce. Nope. And he's not real well at all. He's got all kinds of heart problems. We kind of ran around with them a little bit when they came back, but then they started having problems in their marriage. So, and they had about 6 kids. When they came back, he had one. Then they had about 5 more, and we hung out with them a little bit. And now they're not married. Haven't been married they divorced a long time ago. He had a real alcohol problem. But he had it before they went in, too.
Another thing that's kind of running rampant in that area, or in that time period, I mean, is like substance abuse and stuff like that. Do you think that was because of the war? Like, do you think that made people more susceptible to start doing that kind of stuff?
Oh, it could be, because he's told me, I mean, he doesn't do anything he has is smoking, but he did that before he left also. But not as bad as he does now. But he told me he could have had any drug he wanted over there, but he doesn't do drugs, and I'm very thankful for that. Alcohol, maybe drank a little bit when in our younger years, but actually he doesn't do that anymore, so praise God for that,
What about for you, for other women?
Oh, I didn't.
No?
Actually, I went the other way. I went to God. I mean, I was raised in not a Christian home, but into church. And if anything, it strengthened my faith to go that way. I didn't have to go off in alcohol, drug. I just knew that wasn't my answer. But being raised in a church and youth choir and youth groups and stuff, I knew where to go. I didn't go out to the world and alcohol drinking. I mean, I can't say I haven't had a drink in my life, but it just wasn't my bag. Everything always brought me back to my faith and God.
Do you think that's because of the hardships that you were going through at that time? It kind of...
I mean, because of the war?
Like, your faith is so strong?
Well, I think I had it. I think it's always been there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if adversity comes, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I mean, if things are going good, I mean, you have to kind of grow in faith anyway. When I was younger, I was there, but it's like, oh, you're 19, and, but when adversity comes, and that must just be me, I know where to go. I don't go into alcohol. I don't go on, I'm just going to get drunk. I'm going to I don't do that. But that's probably my background, being raised in the church. Youth group, choir, Bible schools. I mean, I've got a background. Our family, my dad wasn't a Christian, but my mom was, and it kept us into church. And so that's just your gravitation. When you got a problem, you go back. I mean, you don't go back, you just get better as you get older. So substance abuse was never an object with me. I don't know why. I mean, a lot of people just went out drinking did stuff, but I was more afraid of it. Probably because I had a father that scared the crap. No. And that was good. Even though some of it I didn't like, I was afraid to try it.
If you could explain everything you went through in one word, what would it be?
Oh. Well, it's got to be a big word. Give her one. Oh, one word. Experience. That's all I can think of right now. An experience, I guess.
Is there anything that you would change, looking back on it? If you do anything differently?
Yeah, I wouldn't have had the draft papers. No. Anything I change, yeah, I just didn't want him to go, but, he went. So your life just goes. I mean, you just deal with things, I guess. You just learn to deal with things. I think it's helped me deal with a lot of other things, too. You just learn to deal.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, going back to the Lord, if you're a Christian, that's where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Or
No, not really.
anything else? Okay.
I don't know if that helped you or not.
It did.